All right, and then we move on to some NFL news, overall NFL news, and we'll start with a controversial topic, I guess is the way to word it, but we're discussing the Brian Flores lawsuit and the implications it has on the league and moving forward, which is something that I think is obviously very fully, I'm trying to think of the word, validated. There we go. In the fact that I mean, what was there, one head coach this year that was like a, minority coach that was hired because of, yeah, I mean, he's, which by the way, weird press conference with him where he identifies as a human being, but his dad's black. It was a weird,
Oh,
like,
McDaniel on the Dolphins.
specific. Yeah, it was like a weird specification where he was like, my dad's black, but I'm a human being. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know how to take that, but all right.
Right.
And so, yes, obviously the league has had this issue for years. I mean, there were some circumstances after the whole Kaepernick thing that allowed Kaepernick to not be back in the league, like him skipping out on that tryout and all that. But before that, he was getting blackballed. We all know that was a thing. We all know he was getting blackballed by the league.
Yeah.
It wasn't a hidden thing. And then you move to this year where when this coaching search started, the only active, African American coach in the whole league was freaking Mike Tomlin. And Mike Tomlin, deserves to be there because he's been there for years and won multiple Super Bowls. So it's like he's not getting fired. So at the end of the day, you literally have one black coach in the entire league. Like, really? And
Yeah.
then, and there's like tons of candidates. Like the whole Eric Bieniemy thing really confuses me because I just go like, how is he not getting a job? Like normally if a guy doesn't get a job after like 2 or 3 years of being in the cycle, you would hear something, like you would hear something about it, like, oh, here's something that's like staying every GM staying away from. I
Yeah.
haven't heard any of that. Like I haven't heard a single thing about why he hasn't gotten a job.
I
And
think it
it's
was it was
like,
all of his off the field issues that he was hiding up and he was in college and stuff.
oh, I
I think that
mean,
was why he has a very battered past, which I think is probably why. But then also maybe he has the Nagy effect and the stain of that on top of him too.
yeah, and that's where I thought maybe that plays a role into it. But regardless, still a black coach that's not getting an opportunity, even though, he's should be one of the hottest candidates on the market. So it's weird. And
Hmm.
it plays into the whole Rooney Rule thing, which I completely forgot about this. But did you remember like I don't know if you'd heard about it, the Dallas Cowboys thing with Jerry Jones, where he had a phone interview with like a black coach in order to fulfill the Rooney Rule, and then just like didn't even consider anybody else.
Was
Like,
that recent or was this like a
no, it
long
was like
'90s
it was.
Cowboys thing?
I think it was like an early 2000s thing. I
Yeah, the
forget.
Rooney
I
Rule was
forget.
2003, I think.
Yeah, I forget exactly when it was, but it was like yeah, it was like Jerry Jones had like a phone conversation with like a black coach in order to technically fulfill the Rooney Rule, and then they had to like revamp the Rooney Rule because they were like, okay, well,
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
not in
just do that.
spirit. That's
Yeah, it
not in
was
the
like they
spirit
had
of
to,
it.
yeah, they had to redo it and be like, okay, well, you actually have to get them in the building. Like, you can't just call them up and be like, hey, you interested? Yeah. All right, cool, sweet. And then like hang up. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the lawsuit to me makes sense because it has been a thing for years. And I mean, we've talked about it before with black quarterbacks. I mean, why is Justin Fields probably the number two talented quarterback in the draft and then he falls, super far? And it's like, well, what was the main issue with him? Well, he doesn't read defenses well. And it's like, okay, well, that's the thing that I've heard out of every single black quarterback that comes into the draft. So, come up with something that actually is valid instead of he doesn't read defenses well. Like,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's
Trey
just
Lance
things
went
like
high
that.
too, though.
Yeah, Trey Lance went high, but I mean, it was the 49ers, and the 49ers are actually a smart organization, so they just evaluated the quarterbacks like they wanted.
Yeah.
So, they did. I don't suspect that there was really any racial bias there. I think they were actually just looking at the quarterbacks and going, he's our guy.
Yeah.
So that's different. But Justin Fields fell specifically because people were like, he can't read a defense, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, come on. You're like, enough of that. Like, can we stop having this conversation? Hey, remember a couple of years ago when Lamar Jackson was told that he should become a wide receiver and that he shouldn't become a quarterback?
By
Here
the
we
guy who
are.
was helping us pick a coach.
Yeah, God.
Just remove that part. It's a
Yeah,
small
just
stain.
X-nay on that. But anyways, the point
Yeah.
is that that was a real thing, and that's a real conversation that everybody has every freaking time. Malik Willis is this year's, like super talented quarterback who is black, and so of course I can almost guarantee that at some point I'm gonna hear some crap about him not reading defense as well.
If
I
you want
just
to learn more about
can
him, you could check out the YouTube video for that, the one
Yes,
too,
check out
as
our
well.
YouTube video where I talk about him super highly, as in like I think he's the next Michael Vick because he's super talented and awesome and has a lot of upside, and I'm super excited and happy for Malik Willis, and I think wherever he goes, hopefully not the Giants, he'll have a great time. So, uh, other than that though, the point is, I'm sure at some point I'm gonna hear some stupid crap about him not reading defenses from somebody, and it's gonna be some major names out there, and we're gonna all talk about how Kenny Pickett should be above him, and Kenny Pickett's a better quarterback. Kenny Pickett's my favorite quarterback in the draft for talent wise, or for like overall just readiness. But Malik Willis is the highest ceiling in the draft. And so when we start hearing names getting thrown out in front of Malik Willis's name, that's when there's some BS, because Malik Willis is the highest ceiling in this draft and is the, electrifying talent that's going to change an organization. So my point is that this whole lawsuit is, in my opinion, a long time coming, and the league has just kind of tried to brush these things under the rug and just, no, we have black coaches and everything, and it's like,
Dude,
you
the
don't
thing
have,
with the owners recently,
yeah, like
on
all
top
the
of that,
owners.
the fact that they were pursuing the richest black man in the nation to like purchase a stake or purchase majority ownership of the Broncos is hilarious. It's hilariously tone deaf and literally just trying to grab the first guy and be like, look, no, wait, we actually do have a black minority owner. Look at this.
Yeah,
Like, remove the issues. And then in light of this, then you could throw up a headline saying like, ooh, despite ownership in the NFL, like apparently minority coaches are discriminated against. And then it becomes a moot point. It's like, it's one of the, especially because it was broadcast on like a national stage, it was still one of the most like transparent, I guess, angles they could go for, which was awesome. I almost respect the level of just putting it out there exactly as is and being totally like this is a normal thing.
yeah, and that's the thing is I'm not saying that like the owners are all white so they're racist. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the owners have showed in the past with decisions like blackballing Kaepernick from the league when he was recently a quarterback that started in the Super Bowl. That's the kind of thing where you go like, okay, well, that's a choice made by the people that run the league, and so I'm going to blame them for that. Like, that's something that I can criticize them for. I'm also not saying that like they're not giving black businessmen chances to buy a team. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're blackballing, they're stopping black businesses from buying or whatever, or money, blah blah. All I'm saying is the current activities done by the current owners of the league have showed that this is a problem and has been a problem for a long time. And so this lawsuit is 100% an inevitability. And here we are. Like, I'm not surprised.
We're not too many years away from the letting the inmates running the prison and that whole scandal, which
Oh,
that
God.
3 years ago? Is that longer than that? Seems like it was
might be
more recent news, but
Yeah, I think it's a little bit longer than that. But still, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, it's a real deal. It's a real thing. I mean, there's 32. The majority of the league is like the majority of the players in the league are black. So it would make sense that there would be more black representation in the head coaching candidates and head coaching jobs. And it's not. There's not. There's just simply not. And it doesn't make any sense most of the time. I mean, you had this whole controversy of freaking Brian Flores getting supposedly paid money to tank. Like, it's just
I
stuff
totally
like that.
believe that.
I 100% could see that. It was literally the whole thing we talked about was tank for Tua.
Yeah.
That was like a headline. That was a topic that was talked about constantly.
And
so am I surprised?
I know
No.
I know we're planning to talk about betting regardless, because in that case it's fun, but I absolutely hate how much more like how standardized and like mainstream the NFL getting into bed with like betting organizations has gotten because of stuff like this. Little prop bets and stuff that are fun. Like, I like that sort of thing, but like I like to throw like a couple of dollars at it to make a game more interesting. But people who are throwing like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line and then actually paying off maybe potentially coaches or influencing the game is exactly what everybody was worried about happening, and seeing some example of that happening it just sucks. I hate it because it's been advertised in such a like addictive way for people who usually cannot control that. overall, it's a horrible thing. We're still talking about prop bets and stuff like that because it's fun and we just like to do it on the side.
Yeah, but here's the thing:
But
is like the national championship, I threw $15 on. You know what?
yeah,
My bets didn't hit. I lost $15. Who cares? I was
yeah,
entertained and I watched the game, and the $15 that I threw at the game threw me a little bit more into the game because then I
that's
was
what
like,
it
wow,
should be
look,
for. That's the
that's what I'm
ideal
saying.
case.
Yeah,
People
so
who
we're
are
not.
going in there and betting like their mortgage payment on stuff is the problem.
Yeah, we're not advocating for you with all of the bets that we're going to go over and everything. We're not advocating for you to put $50 on every single one of the bets that we call and then, try to bet your whole paycheck on this one game. No,
Yep.
what we're doing is going through them because they're fun to go through, and you want to throw like a buck at 15 of them and watch to see if all of them hit or none of them hit.
Yeah.
Great, because then you only lose $15. But the problem is that people will throw $1,500 at the game,
That is
and
for Wall
then
Street bets. There's a different subreddit for that. You can go if you want to be degenerate gambler. That's different.
yeah.
Not the case for this one.
Uh-huh.
But on a side conversation, our Super Bowl squares, I have 100 sold out now, so we actually sold out of all of them. So,
Good.
those are always fun too.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah,
most common form of gambling, I think, in America before sports betting online happened, because I knew that for years my parents had always done like, the squares or whatever. That's just most commonplace because it's easy and there's no skill involved. So it's fun. Anyways.
So overall, it's inevitable that this was going to happen, and I'm glad that Brian Flores is the person to do it because he's a guy that it was put through stupid stuff down in Miami. Because I also heard there was also like that stuff that came out that was like, oh, Brian Flores actually didn't want Tua, and then they forced him to draft Tua, and they were like, okay, you're now going to have to deal with Tua. And it's like, well, why would you get a head coach? And then he gives his opinion on players, and he wanted Herbert, by the way. Funny fact there.
Imagine living through the 2 seasons or whatever that he coached there, 2 or 3, and then every day just being like, "Yep, I mean, we could have had him." I said,
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, I'm not surprised that this is happening. I'm glad Brian Flores is the one doing it. I also which I totally want to believe that Bill Belichick did that on purpose to help out Brian Flores
100%.
and throw him a bone. Because that's a Bill Belichick thing. He just loves to get back at the league like that. So, absolutely, that probably happened. So, yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, glad it's happening. It needs to bring light an issue that has been occurring for quite a while and has been, kind of swept under the rug as like, well, no, it's not really a big problem. And it's like, it kind of is. Like, it's, so I'm happy about it. So.
Yeah, no, even if it just brings more headlines to it and stuff and like more public pressure. I will say I think the outcome of it is going to be something stupid like the NFL trying to, persuade a black owner to purchase and hoping to hand wave the issue and everything. I would hope it has actually more long-standing things that are associated with it, but since they also still keep, Daniel Snyder as an owner and all that stuff, like my limitations of what I expect to change are pretty limited overall, but it should be brought up more.
By the way, did you see the meme about where the meme about like who's the problem in Washington? And it was like Dan Snyder trying to figure out who the problem is. Did you see that?
No.
It's the freaking clip from where he's in the hot dog costume from the comedy show that we watched on Netflix.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think you should leave. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the caption was Dan Snyder trying to figure out who's the cause for this, and it was him in the hot dog costume going, I don't know who did it. And I was like, that's so unbelievably perfect.
Which, by the way, there's a fantastic there's NBA Twitter account that uses exclusively I think you should leave memes. And there isn't a good one for the NFL, which is kind of disappointing. It sounds like that would have been from it if that was the case.
Yeah.
There should be, because like all the trade stuff and the drama in the NBA, it's like a perfect match made in heaven. There was a bunch of ones for like Ben Simmons and everything that came out, but it's infinitely reusable, and it at least to me it doesn't get old.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's awesome. But anyways, yeah, so all right, well, we'll move on to our next topic regarding the NFL before we leave the NFL as a topic overall. Kyler